Okay, so when we last left Pandora, we'd just seen the US military being overthrown by the Na'vi due to Sully switching sides and leading an uprising. After the defeat of Colonel Quatrich, the humans were forced to flee Pandora, and there has been peace on the planet ever since then. We learn that Jake has created a family with Neytiri, and he's also adopted the son of Quatrich who had to stay on Pandora. Born in Hell's Gate, he was too young for cryosleep, and therefore couldn't return home and has remained behind with the Na'vi. He's not the only person they've adopted either, and they've also taken Kiri under their wing, who's quite a mysterious character. Voiced by Sigourney Weaver, there's a big question mark over how she came to be, and for the first part of the video we're going to be going through that. Now if you cast your mind back to the first movie, you'll remember that Sigourney played the character Grace, who died whilst transferring her mind into her avatar. Just before her death, Grace told Jake that she was with Aua, and she passed away, leaving her avatar body behind. We discover that Kiri was born from her, and though Grace's avatar was rendered brain dead, it was still naturally alive. She conceived Kiri, who now carries human traits, and these include eyebrows as well as 4 fingers. Now this was something from the first movie that the avatars carried, and this is because they were all bearing human DNA. Kiri has a strong spiritual connection to the planet, and this is likely due to Grace seeing Aua before her death. Kiri even witnesses Grace at one point in the film, but we don't learn too much about how she was conceived. Kiri's deepest wish is that she could have met Grace, and she often visits her avatar and also watches through recordings she left behind. Now due to her body being brain dead, there's 3 ways that she could have been conceived. The first is pretty f***ed, and I don't know if we're necessarily going to be going that route because I doubt Cameron's going to touch that, especially not in a Disney movie. The second option is that Kiri's actually an immaculate conception, and that she came to be after Grace came into presence with the god. She has a way to tap into the spiritual side of things, and I think that she may become a really important character in the upcoming movies. There's also talk that she and Norm had a thing, and that she was pregnant before she passed away, which means they were getting it on in their avatar bodies. Kiri can also control plant and animal life underwater, and if she can do this, then it's possible she can do it with the trees and animals on land. Now Grace isn't the only character who finds new life in the movie, and both Wayne Fleet and Colonel Quatrich return once more. We discover that just before his death, that Quatrich uploaded his mind, emotions, and everything that made him him. He has been processed through the recombinant program, which has allowed him to return once more. Now due to him being duplicated before his death, Quatrich doesn't have any memory of his because technically from his perspective, he never experienced it. There's lots of interesting things that they can do with him, and potentially he may come to realize that he's a slave that's simply being used by the army rather than actually having a life of his own. There's lots of deeper questions here, such as what it means to be human, whether a perfect duplicate becomes that, or if it's simply a copy. He also hated the Na'vi, but has now himself become an avatar, and the dislike for Quatrich is Quatrich coming from him, eh? Quatrich, quite rich, that's my one bad pun for the video. Now it's very much a ship of Theseus situation that they could end up exploring in future movies, as we know that the character is gonna be back for all the sequels. Now because of when he was uploaded, he also carries the same hatred for Jake that the original did. To him, Jake is a traitor that destroyed the hopes of humanity's survival, and with depleting resources back on Earth, Sully doomed the entire species because he needed to f*** some blue cat lady. His words, not mine. Now after the humans land, we get a 1-year time jump, and we see as Jake and the Na'vi have started launching guerrilla attacks on the humans. Spider is captured early on by Quatrich and his forces, and realizing that he has intel that could endanger their people, Jake and the family decide to up sticks. The humans have a way of basically seeing someone's thoughts by putting them on what's basically an MRI machine on drugs. Jake would likely be aware of this and not want to bring his family into it, and therefore he's just like, we need to get out of here because they're using the twirly whirly machine. Now they travel out to the Metcaina, who have become almost one with the ocean and the aquatic life that live there. The movie is basically about Jake and Neytiri's family learning to adapt there and navigating how to best handle a human threat. It's very much a fish out of way of water story, and much in the same way that the first movie focused on Jake learning something new, the family now have to learn something new in this new environment. Now along with Spider and Kiri, Neytiri and Jake have 3 other children. These are Netayam, Loak, Tuk Teri, or Tuk for short, and I'll be calling them Tuk because I've butchered all those pronunciations. Now in this movie, we watch as they all start to integrate and also meet several of the Metcaina. This includes their leader Tanawari, who's voiced by Cliff Curtis. There's also his wife Ronal, who, I think it's pronounced Ronal, who's played by Kate Winslet. On top of this, the pair have a daughter Raya, who sort of starts a thing with Jake's son. Now Winslet said that she'd never work with Cameron again after the she got put through on Titanic, and she stated in interviews that during production, she'd sometimes wake up wishing for death. Yay! Well, she's back because they backed up the money truck, and Winslet actually set a world record for the movie whilst filming the underwater scenes. She held her breath for over 7 minutes, which is amazing, but Cameron wanted 8, so get back under the water, you f***ing. Now Quattridge and his forces use Spider to track down Jake, and they also start hunting Tulkins, and we learn what the humans are really there for. These animals are extremely intelligent, and inside them exists a fluid that completely stops all aging within humans. Humanity is now whale hunting them, and trying to harvest this in order to sell it on to stop humans dying. The humans then attack, leading to the kids being captured, and a big battle on water takes place. They manage to escape with Spider, but Natayam is shot jumping off the ship. He ends up dying from his wounds as his body's taken to the shore, and he very much becomes the first blood in the family. The ending of the film somewhat acts as a mirror, as we start by chronicling the birth of him and we end with the character's death. Now throughout the movie, we saw Jake giving his children a hard time due to the pressure that was caused by the humans coming back. He had to turn them into soldiers rather than letting them be the family that we see them being in the opening of the movie. Jake's kids were also bullied by the Metcaina. I think he feels like this war has taken away the lives that they should have had together. Now back on the shore, to make matters worse, Quattridge has Jake's daughters and he wants to trade his life for theirs. Surrounded by fire, Jake and Neytiri head out into the night onto the sinking ship along with Spider. They launch an attack that wipes out a lot of the humans, with Neytiri almost becoming feral as she takes them out. Jake frees Tuck, but Kiri's taken hostage by Quattridge, and at this point Neytiri grabs Spider and puts a blade to his neck. Though Quattridge initially pretends to not care about him dying, he hands Kiri over when he realizes she's willing to take a son for his son. Clearly, Quattridge cares about him, and we'll talk about this more later on in the video. Now Jake goes to leave, but Quattridge says that he won't stop until he kills him and his whole family. Thus he returns to battle him again, and the family are forced back onto the ship as the fire from it starts to spread. It slowly starts to go down, and in the end Jake seemingly drowns Quattridge into the water, but he's rescued by Spider. Jake nearly drowns too, but Lurk travels back down there to get him, and they make it out with some help from a Tulkin. Now on land, Quattridge calls Spider's son and asks him to come with him, but Spider does the Navi and swims off back to his family. This great impression, and this is very much a son for a son, but rather than killing Spider, they've taken him away from his father. He may never know the love that having a family brings, and will likely spend the rest of his existence fighting in this war. The movie ends with a funeral at sea, and we know from the first film that the Navi have a circle of life in which they're born before they return to Ewa. The son returns to the spiritual world, and Jake offers to leave them at Kaina, but he's embraced by the group and this now becomes his home. The movie ends with them reaching out to Ewa underwater, and Jake experiences seeing his son along with Neytiri. Jake vows not to let Quattridge take his home, and that going forward they'll make their stand there. The movie ends with his eyes opening, and this is much in the same vein of how the first film climaxed too. Now going forward, there's a fair bit that we know about the rest of the Avatar films. Avatar 3 was filmed alongside this movie with principal photography on it starting back in 2017. All the cast returned, and it has been stated that Quattridge will be the villain in 3, 4 and 5. Una Chaplin and David Thewlis have been added to the cast as new characters, and we know that the former will be called Varang. As for Thewlis, we don't know his character name, but he did say that he needed to do motion capture for the movie and has stated in passing that his character is one of the Na'vi. We also have Michelle Yeoh, who will be playing Dr. Karina Moog. Cameron has stated in interviews that he got some notes back for the Avatar 3 script, and he said that he must have gotten better because all he got for Avatar 4 was an email saying, "This is f***ing crazy." The title for the third film will be The Seed Bearer, 4 will be called The Tulkun Rider, and lastly 5 will be called The Quest for Ewa. We of course meet the Tulkuns in the movie, and these are the giant whales that live within the ocean. We see Jake's son riding them, and they'll likely become something that the other Navis learn to ride. Just like how in Dune we had the Worm Riders, I think that the Tulkun will be a similar sort of thing. These great beasts will even the playing field in the sea, and allow the Na'vi to take down the humans. The humans of course want them too, and I think that they'll become the utmost important thing due to the fluid within them. Now lastly is The Quest for Ewa, which will be coming out in 2028. I'm guessing that this last film will have a strong focus on Kiri due to her connection to Grace, who she connected with in the movie. She can pretty much become the human personification of Aowa, and it seems like when she was uploaded into the tree that she remained there rather than moving into her body like Jake did. We'll also likely learn who Kiri's true father is, even though I think we'll go with the whole immaculate conception thing. Now, tying back to earlier in the vid and the idea of cloning and so on, I do think that they could potentially start exploring this avenue more and more. Although it's possible that Jake will kill the second version of Quattrich, I actually think it would be more interesting if he was kept alive. Say that he comes to accept the idea that he's actually Quattrich rather than being a clone, and instead of living an existence based around war, he decides to try and form a relationship with his son. He has seen behind the curtain of what humanity is up to, and being a Navi now might make him start to see empathy when he's murdering people that look like him. Therefore, he may leave the service in order to live in this paradise with his son, instead of being like, nah, f it, we're gonna burn it all down. Now, what would the army do at this point? Well, they still have his mind backed up, and I think it would be crazy if they just decided that because the prior version had failed, that it was time to create another REMCOM using his mind. There's no rule that we can't have two REMCOMs of the same person running around out there, and for this newer version it would be like he'd just come off the back of uploading his mind. You could have two versions of Quattrich running around, with one having gone through an entire character arc, whilst the others coming fresh off having just been resurrected. I think this would add such an interesting dynamic to the entire franchise, and ask what it means to be human. Now, we know at some point that the fight will likely be taken to Earth. The rumours around Avatar 5 say that we will be journeying to the planet. Now, this could either be because they want to stop the humans once and for all, or potentially Pandora itself could be inhabitable. The war could potentially destroy all life on the planet and mean that the Na'vi have to flee into space. The Na'vi don't really have the technology for space travel, and thus it is interesting to think why there'd be any other reason for travelling to Earth. Now, if you saw the extended cut for the first movie, then you'll know that we spent some time on Earth, and that takes me into my next point, which is my crazy theory about Jake's brother. That's right, you chump. It's theory time. Theory time. Theory time. Your favourite bit. It's your favourite bit, isn't it? You love it. It's theory time. So if you cast your mind back to the first movie, then you'll know that Jake only got into the Avatar program because his twin brother was part of it. Jake's brother died, and thus he was asked to go to Pandora as he'd be compatible with his avatar. I think the recombinant angle adds a lot of avenues to the movie, and I'd love it if we have a twist where it turned out that his brother was still alive. His body was cremated, but if his mind was duplicated, then there is the potential that they could bring him back. With him being a twin as well, Jake looking at him in his avatar would add an extra dimension to all of their interactions. Jake would pretty much be faced with the way he used to look, and his brother would represent the past that he left behind. Jake's brother's death is what pushed him on this journey, and though I don't think they go with that, it could add some internal conflict within him and his brother. I think the film in general could end up being about freeing those trapped in the recombinant program, because those that are in it could potentially be enslaved. Who knows how many times Quattrich is being brought back, and if one awakens and doesn't act the way they want, they can just press the reset button and start all over again. Say they use the fluid and Tulkins on the soldiers, then that means Quattrich is gonna be a slave that's fighting the war for eternity. It removes freedom, and those that don't act the way they want are forced into a life of war and vengeance. Might not happen, but that's anything. Anyway, I've seen some people saying that due to Cameron's comments about 4 being crazy, that they could even do some wild shit, like saying it's all a simulation. We're dealing with host bodies and stuff, but with the title of the 5th movie having that Aowa in it, I doubt they're gonna do it. Movies that do that stuff without the premise already being built in normally get backlash for it, and I'd kick the f off if that happened, so don't f***ing do it. And as for my thoughts on the film, I think James Cameron, he's bloody done it again. In terms of visuals, this movie is unmatched, and even the first one doesn't come close in terms of environment and the beauty that's on display here. It really is an experience that leaps off the screen and continues to remind me why cinemas are such an important part of our culture. Now, the plot is a little bare bones, and clocking in at over 3 hours, I think there are some people who might struggle with the pacing. It's an hour into the movie before we even get to the Mechina, but I think just how much the world absorbs you definitely makes up for it. Again, this is unmatched in terms of scope and scale, and it's something that I definitely recommend everyone checks out in a cinema. Now, just in the same way that the first movie was captivating, this ups the stakes too. I have seen people saying that the characters are a little shallow, but I do disagree with that too. I mean, they're not massively complex, but it's very much a coming of age story for the kids, and the parents also having to weigh up the costs of war. You also have some really interesting things with Quatrich and Kiri that no doubt will be explored in future sequels down the line. So yeah, Cameron's done it again. He's created an amazing spectacle, but at the heart of it is a story about family that feels timeless. Now whether this tops the first one's box office remains to be seen, and I think this does very much feel like a middle chapter, whereas that was more standalone. You kinda need to get all those people back, but I think word of mouth for this movie will be very strong and people will probably return. I also think that on the whole, that most will enjoy it too. Now as an experience, I'd say this is a 10 out of 10 tour de force. However, as a movie, I'd probably mark it around the 8 out of 10, that sort of place. There's great storytelling and things that set up the future, but yeah, the pacing at points and the fact that it doesn't feel like a complete story just knocked it down from being perfect for me. Now obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, so make sure you comment below and let me know. We are in a competition right now and giving away Dawn of the Dead and Black Adam to 3 subscribers on the 15th of January. And all you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the movie. We pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of the insane details in Avatar, which will be linked on screen right now. We revisited the first movie in the lead up to this and found lots of cool details, so definitely head over there right after this. With that out of the way, thanks for sticking through the video. I've been Paul, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.